country. Okay, my friends, a lot, and I mean a lot to talk about today. But I don't know about you, but what happened yesterday, in Midtown Manhattan? You want to talk about a Hollywood or Netflix movie come to real life. This, to me, is a fascinating story, frankly, on many, many angles. So here is now the absolute latest, and it is the biggest story in the country, and it has gripped newspapers all over the world. Brian Thompson, 50 years old, the CEO of United Healthcare. This is the largest, and I mean largest, by far the largest private health insurance company in the United States, one of the biggest private health insurance companies in the entire world. Was supposed to, he's based in Minnesota, comes to Midtown Manhattan to go to an investors conference held by United Health. At 6:45 in the morning yesterday, he is walking down the sidewalk. He had left his hotel, the Marriott, to go to the Hilton, which is a very ritzy, high-end hotel where the conference was being held. And in front of multiple eyewitnesses. Now remember, this is 6:45 in the morning in downtown Manhattan. There are already a lot of people there. There are surveillance cameras everywhere. A man dressed in black with a black face mask, a distinctive gray backpack, coolly, calmly, in a premeditated, cold-blooded fashion, walks up behind Brian Thompson, boom, boom. He shoots him in the leg. Thompson turns around like, what? What just happened? He then shoots him in the back. Thompson now falls on the ground. And this is the part that's really chilling. His gun jams. But he is so cool, so casual, so nonchalant, so methodical, almost mellow. He just calmly, smoothly unjams his own gun and puts another bullet into Brian Thompson. This was clearly the work, if not a professional, a semi-professional. There's no doubt about it. This was a targeted hit on the streets of Manhattan. As I told Mike when I came in and we were talking about, the show today, I said, number one, think of how brazen this is. This is an assassination of one of the most consequential, high-ranking CEOs in the United States, the largest private health insurer in the country, in pretty much broad daylight. I know it's early morning, but it's still 6:45. I mean, this is Manhattan. There are people everywhere. And then the gunman goes down an alley, jumps on an E-City bike, and then heads into Central Park where the surveillance camera footage is much more spotty, and apparently makes his getaway. The police are still, there's a massive manhunt underway. They are still looking for the shooter. There are many reasons why they believe, they're very confident that they're going to get him. I hope they get him, and I hope they get him very quickly. But what everybody is talking about are several things. Number one, the premeditated, calculated nature. This was clearly not a random shooting. This was an execution. This was an assassination. Why? Because there were so many pedestrians already on the street that if this person was just a random shooter, he would have shot many other people before finally specifically targeting Brian Thompson. Furthermore, here is now the absolute latest. According now to surveillance footage and what law enforcement is telling the media, the shooter was staking out the Hilton Hotel where this investors conference was going to be held at about 8 o'clock that morning. He was waiting for Brian Thompson. He had been there for at least 5 minutes. He had gone to a Starbucks The shooter goes to a Starbucks, buys, according to what police say, is a bottle of water and 2 power bars. So he's waiting for Thompson. He's so cool. He's so calm. He's so collected. I mean, he's eating a power bar. You're drinking. You're eating. You're just patiently waiting. And then, as he scoped out the Hilton Hotel, he was waiting for his mark. When Brian Thompson was walking, you could tell he locked in, he followed him, and that's when he shot him almost point blank execution style. Now, a couple of points, and then I want to open it up to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. Why the police are confident that this was clearly not a random shooting, but a deliberate attack, a targeted assassination, is, as I said, there were many people on the streets, on the sidewalks that he had encountered that were walking by him. If he was some crazy guy who just wanted to shoot people for the sake of shooting people, there were many other people he would have shot. But furthermore, Thompson was a very prominent CEO of a major, in fact, the largest healthcare company in the country, rejected many claims. Many claims. In fact, Thompson's wife, Paulette Thompson, and by the way, they have 2 young sons. I feel immensely sorry for that poor woman and her children. They lost apparently what seemed to be a loving father, a loving husband. The employees speak very highly of him. People at United Healthcare speak very highly of him. This man appeared to have a very good reputation, at least among his colleagues and among his family and friends. I'm just going by media reports. There was no anger. There was no, as I said to Mike, I said, if this was somebody who had been denied coverage and wanted to lash out at the CEO, you wouldn't do it like this. This shooter had a silencer. This shooter clearly had some kind of military training. This shooter was extremely calm, very methodical, very precise, very cold-blooded. And in a way, that's what I find most chilling about this. That you could just take someone's life without batting an eye. A sociopath. No conscience whatsoever. I mean, to the point that you're so cool and calm about it that you get yourself a bottle of water, a couple of power bars, and the way he planned the getaway, knowing where to go right down a back alley, to get on a bike, to get to Central Park. Probably the backpack, I'm assuming, is for a change of clothes, and then he can just blend into Central Park and eventually get out through the subway or take a cab or whatever. The point being, this was obviously extremely well planned, extremely well executed. It has all the hallmarks of a hit job. Now, why? Why would somebody want to put a mark, a hit, on the CEO of United Healthcare? That's the question. The motive is now going to, determine a lot. And of course, the identity of the shooter once they capture him. So, to me, I'm looking at this and I'm asking myself a couple of very basic questions. Why would somebody want to kill this man? Who would be willing to go far enough to pay someone, and it appears he was paid, to go and kill him in broad daylight on the streets of Manhattan in front of the Hilton? Furthermore, clearly this person knew his schedule. He knew when he was going to leave his hotel, the Marriott. He knew approximately when he was going to arrive at the Hilton or near the Hilton. So this is someone who had pretty intimate, personal, detailed knowledge of what he was going to do that day and what he was doing in Manhattan. So again, this is like a Hollywood movie. Now, according to police, there are some problems with the shooting. It wasn't a completely professional job. He apparently left his water bottle fell out of his pocket and his cell phone fell, and they found it. They recovered it in the alley. If that's true, and I believe it is, then that's sloppy. That's sloppy because they can get DNA off the cell phone. They can get DNA off the bottle. And they already have a warrant. They're combing through the cell phone unless it's a false flag. Police are saying that happens quite often when you're dealing with a professional or semi-professional hit. The phone falls out. They do it as a false flag to try to pin it on somebody else or to lead the police astray. Now, it appears to be a prepaid cell phone, and apparently he used a prepaid debit card for the bike, the e-city bike that he took. Apparently you have to use a prepaid credit card or a credit card, forgive me, or a debit card, and he apparently used a prepaid credit card. One of the reasons why he was able to so easily access a prepaid credit card is because they have so many migrants in New York. And they're all using prepaid credit cards. So, this was a planned hit on a major CEO right there in downtown, midtown Manhattan. My question to you, what do you make of this assassination? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's very quick because I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. I want you to listen now. This is the commissioner of the New York Police Department, Jessica Tisch. And she says, look, the evidence is overwhelming. This was a hit job. This was targeted. This was clearly premeditated. This was not a random act of violence. Roll cut 10, Mike.
In Midtown Manhattan early this morning, 50-year-old Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, was shot and killed in what appears, at this early stage of our investigation, to be a brazen, targeted attack. This does not appear to be a random act of violence.
And I think it's pretty obvious now. I mean, again, if we just look at the surveillance footage, his demeanor, the way he executed the shooting, but also, I mean, there's a lot. This is Midtown Manhattan. As the New York Post put it, this is maybe the most trafficked place on earth. I mean, in the middle of the night, there are people everywhere. Never mind at 6:45 in the morning. It's teeming with people. So you can see it. People are walking by him, pedestrians. So if he was just there to start shooting people, believe me, he had, countless people he could have shot. No, he stalked the Hilton. He waited for his prey. He cased out the Hilton. He knew exactly what he was doing. He followed Brian Thompson. This was a hit. Whether it was a paid hit or a favor to a friend or whatever, we're going to find out, obviously. But this was clearly a hit job. Now, listen to Jessica Tisch again, saying, I want to stress, people in New York, we don't have some crazy gunman on the loose who's just going to start shooting people. This was an assassin, and he was like a semi-professional. He bided his time. He was lying in wait, and when he saw his mark, he made his move. Roll cut 10A, Mike.
The victim was in New York City to speak at an investor conference. It appears the suspect was lying in wait for several minutes. And as the victim was walking to the conference hotel, the suspect approached from behind and fired several rounds, striking the victim at least once in the back and at least once in the right calf. Many people passed the suspect, but he appeared to wait for his intended target.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, they released the video. You can see the surveillance footage. There's no question. That person was gunning, pardon the pun, but gunning for Brian Thompson. There's no question about it. Now, let's, for a second, leave aside that the water bottle fell out and the cell phone fell out. Again, the cell phone falling out could be a false flag. It could be a way to try to distract police. That's why the police are saying, I don't know how professional this guy is. And furthermore, what many police officers, or at least my sources are telling me, I said, how professional was this? And they said, well, normally, you don't shoot the guy in the leg. That obviously was a mistake on the part of this assassin. Usually it's 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. They're very calm, very cool, very methodical, like what you just saw on the surveillance footage. But they usually come very close, and it's boom, boom, right to the chest, and then bang, one final one to the head. And that's your kill shot, and then they just escape. They get away. But he planned his escape, and he got away extremely quick. To show you how quick, the execution takes place 6:46 a.m. By 6:48, he's already on his East City bike heading into Central Park. Basically within 2 minutes. Yeah, I mean, think about this. 120 seconds. He's pretty much almost in Central Park with his backpack, dumps the bike or whatever he does with the bike, and changes clothes, and then it's really hard to track him down. Roll cut 10B, Mike.
The suspect fled, first on foot, then on an e-bike, and was last seen in Central Park on Center Drive early this morning.
So let me ask all of you, okay, 2 questions, and I want to take calls right away after the break. What do you think was the motive? I'm just curious. I know it's speculation, but what do you think is the motive for this very brazen assassination? And was this a professional hit job? Is New York City now becoming Moscow? Or this is what happens in Moscow. This is what happens in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. This is, this is what happens in Mexico City. This is what happens in Bogota, Colombia, where you watch, prominent people are just executed on the streets by paid assassins, whether professional or semi-professional. Is this now what New York City is turning into? I'm just curious. And what the hell? Let me throw this log on the fire, because that's one of the things that struck me right away. Look at the level of crime. Look at the level of violence in New York. That it's gotten to the point that a CEO of the largest private insurance company in the United States is not even safe going to a freaking conference. What happened to gun control? New York has some of the strictest gun control laws in the country. I guess gun control, it no work. 32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, murder in Midtown Manhattan. In fact, really, an execution, an assassination in Midtown Manhattan. It has shocked really the country and much of the world. Brazen, 6:46 a.m. in the morning. The CEO of the country's largest, biggest private health insurance company just gunned down practically at point blank range, which seems by an assassin. That's all the evidence seems to be pointing that way. Okay, I just want to make one final, I promise, super small point. As you know, we have a lot of veterans that listen to this show. A lot of law enforcement and a lot of veterans. And, I love all of you. I love you guys. The only reason why I'm mentioning this, on Messenger, my feed is getting blown up with vets, police officers. My email inbox is full. People are texting in, vets, police, saying, Jeff, this was clearly a professional job. There is no question. This person definitely knew what he was doing. This was not some, gangbanger or I don't know, some random, disaffected person who just was denied cover. May have hired the person to do it. Yes. But this is not just some random disaffected person denied coverage. And you know what? I'm going to teach this guy a lesson. The way the shooter handled the gun, how calm, how cool, how collected, the planning of the escape, just everything, the whole nature of the shooting and the murder, the staking out of the Hilton, everything, the planning, the preparation. There were some mistakes, but they go, this is no amateur. That's all I've been getting now, really, for the last 35 minutes. 617-266-6868. Let's go to Thomas in California. Thomas, thanks for holding and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Thomas.
So, I don't think his gun actually jammed. When you're using a silencer, sometimes he'll use subsonic bullets, which have a little less powder in them, so they don't quite kick back the mechanism to chamber the next round, trying to keep down on some of the noise.
Interesting. So you're saying you don't think the gun jammed at all, right?
No, I think he was expecting it. You have a lower powder ratio in those bullets to make them less loud, I guess.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Thomas, I'm just curious. What do you make of, this is not Joe Schmo. This is the CEO, apparently very well liked. I'm going to get into it. There was an investigation, DOJ. There was accusations of insider trading. The wife is saying that he was getting death threats. So I'm not saying, he's a saint. I'm not saying this guy walks on water, but I'm just stating from everything I've read, apparently very successful CEO, loved by many people, employees, colleagues, friends, family members, that this would happen in downtown, midtown Manhattan, in downtown New York at 6:46 in the morning, in front of all those cameras, in front of all those witnesses, right there on the sidewalk. Thomas, are we becoming a third world banana republic? As I said, what are we now? Russia? What is this? Moscow? What is this? Bogota, Colombia? So now you're not even safe to go to a conference. Apparently the Marriott Hotel was just, half a street away from the Hilton. He gets out, has breakfast, gets out. He's off to an investors conference, and before you know it, he's dead. Thomas, really, is this now the new New York and the new America we have to live in?
If we let the Democrats get any kind of power back, it will be.
If I'm living in New York, wouldn't you be embarrassed? This is what Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul and Joe Biden have reduced your city and your state to. Now, Trump is coming back, and hopefully he's going to start cleaning this up. But, Thomas, holy mackerel. No, really, if this guy's not safe, then who the hell is safe? Thomas, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Look, Fox News is located right, 2 blocks away, a block and a half away. Most of the major media, their headquarters is literally a block or 2 blocks away. This is midtown Manhattan. It's near Wall Street. It's near the biggest legal firms in the country, the biggest financial institutions in the country. You've got 5-star hotels, top hotels. If there's going to be one place that should be safe, it's got to be that. Look, you know me. I don't care for the elites. I'm Main Street over Wall Street any day. But I'm just saying, if they're not safe in Midtown, where the hell are they safe? 617-266-6868. Mark in Connecticut. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, you know how many hits there's been in New York City? This has been going on forever. There's a classic earmark of, obviously, I'm not saying anything, new or anything, but how many hits have there been in New York City? You can't count them. This has been going on forever in New York City. They're going to have to find out what Mr. Wonderful was into and trace it backwards to find out, okay, was he in the mob? Was he involved with, foreign interests that he ripped off? What did he do that warranted somebody to put a hit on him? Now, obviously, that was a professional job. The guy, give him his kudos. He got the hell out of there, and it was a professional job. For a psychopath, I'm not praising a psychopath.
No, I hear you. No, but Mark, look, you're making an excellent, you're right. There's been a lot of hits in New York. Generally, though, Mark, and you're right. Look, let's not be naive. You have the mob, you have all sorts of things, but it tends to be mob related. It's gangs. It's, a gang member putting out a hit on another gang member. I mean, the reason why this is one of the biggest stories in the world is it's a CEO of a massive, I think they're number 4 on the Fortune 500. I mean, you're talking about a major CEO of a major international company. What was it? Its revenue is almost $400 billion. So, you know what I mean? This is not, the Abruzzi crime family versus the Genovese crime family. And they're fighting over, brothels and gambling in Little Italy. So you're talking about, one of the top chief executive officers in the country. And he's getting, he's gunned down on the sidewalk like a dog on his way to an investors conference. But you are right. I mean, there's been many hits. It's the nature of the hit and the person that got hit. I think that's what's shocking everybody. But Mark, I want to ask you this. What kind of a human being? No, really. You go to a Starbucks, I'll have a bottle of water. Sure, give me a couple of power bars. Because in your mind, you're like, because I'm going to kill a guy in about 3 minutes. Oh yeah, he's dead. Yeah, no problem. Oh, there he is. Okay, I've been waiting for him. Finally, okay, let's go. And you just walk up behind him. Now, he's got a wife. He's got 2 young kids, 2 sons. He's got a mother. He's got family. He's got siblings. He's got friends. Apparently, Mark, at the conference, when they found out that he was killed, at least among them, he was loved. I mean, cops said they were very emotional because they were crying. They were just bawling. And one after another, I mean, you got to read it. They're all going to the media saying, I'm telling you, he was a nice guy, had dinner with him recently, always asked about my parents, my family, was great with bonuses, treated his colleagues well, his employees well. I mean, they're mourning. They're weeping when they found out. So all I'm just saying is, whatever he was involved in, you follow a guy, he's got a wife, he's got kids, he's got friends, he's got colleagues, and you shoot him like you're shooting a rat. Like you're just like you're stomping on a cockroach. But it's just nothing. It's just boom, boom. And then let me do one more. Boom, as he's on the ground. And off you go. Jump on a bike and you go into Central Park. La-da-da, bye-bye. Mark, what kind of a human being does this?
Look, you can't understand it, but there are people that have, no soul, no, anything. Did you ever read the book The Octopus, about the Sicilian mob?
No.
There was one hitman they were talking about. He killed 15 people.
Mark, please hang on. This is fascinating. Hang on. I'm up against a hard break. Mark now is going to open the door into the mind of a hitman. More next. KO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it is the murder really that is shocking the country and in many ways the world. It looks like, again, I'm just going by what the police are saying and the surveillance footage and the targeted assassination of Brian Thompson. He is the CEO of the largest private health insurer in the country, one of the biggest health insurance companies in the entire world, 50 years of age. He was gunned down just outside of the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. He had came out from the Marriott where he was staying, which was maybe a couple hundred feet away, half a street or whatever. And he went to the Hilton where their investors conference was being held. He flew in from Minneapolis to New York just for this conference. And the shooter was waiting for him, waited, staked out the hotel, followed him, and then with a silencer on a gun, shot him and murdered him, killed him execution style. Let's go back to Mark in Connecticut. Mark is saying, look, Jeff, it's a world I don't know. It's a world, obviously, most of this audience, all of this audience, I would hope, doesn't know, but it's the world of a hitman. And Mark in Connecticut is saying, look, Jeff, there's a book called The Octopus, which is about the Sicilian mob or the Italian mob?
Sicilian mob.
The Sicilian mob.
They spread their tentacles out, the octopus. That's where they got the name.
And you're saying there was a hitman that killed 15 people. Mark, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, he killed 13 for business and 2 for pleasure. Now, pleasure? I was shocked when I read that and stuff. There was another guy, a Don, a cart got loose and ran his 9-year-old son's leg over. The Don, it was an accident. The kid wasn't killed or nothing. He hurt his leg. Wasn't even broken. The Don killed him, his wife, all their immediate family, and their in-laws. Killed all their animals and burned their house down. This is a mentality that we don't understand, but there's a lot of people out there who have no more empathy for a human being as just stepping on an insect. They're out there. I mean, it's scary. I don't understand any of it, but it is fascinating to think, to read about these people. That guy had no compunction about the guy's family or anything like that. And I'll tell you, Brian, the CEO, he was into something. They're going to trace it backwards. They're going to find out what he was into and what he did to, quote, earn this. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying?
No, you're not saying he deserved it. You're saying what motivated this person for someone to hire him to kill Brian Thompson. I got you. Let me ask you this final question, Mark. Again, to push it even one layer back. Okay, the killer, I think you've really very concisely but very accurately painted a portrait of what these people are like. Say it's a disgruntled employee. Say it's someone who is denied coverage. And apparently that's what the wife is saying, that he got a lot of death threats. He was getting a lot of them the last couple of weeks because of his decision to have denied, I don't know how many people, but quite a few people, health insurance coverage for operations, surgeries, treatments, whether for cancer or whatever. So he had enemies. How do you justify hiring someone to kill the CEO of a health insurance company? I mean, you've explained the mind of a hitman. I got that. Now, look, obviously you're upset. You got leukemia. I'm just making something up. Pancreatic cancer. They're denying you coverage. You're angry. You're going to, lash out. But to the point of paying someone potentially to kill him, to me, it's the person that hires the hitman. That's the pun I can't really get. Because, I would think that person would at least have some conscience, some scruples, some sense of morality. Am I wrong, Mark?
Yeah, you are. They have there are people who have no feelings or anything. Like that little voice in them is silent, and it just points inward towards them. And to hire somebody professional like him, that's not cheap. It had to be somebody with some cash that hired that guy. It's not a cheap job, right? He makes his living doing that.
Mark, as always, thank you. Mark, you should call more often. You're a you're a very good caller. Mark, thank you very much for that call. George in Maine. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
I normally don't call up anybody, but I clipped this article from the Wall Street Journal on 11/13. That's November 13th, about a month ago. And it starts on page A1, and it continues on page A9. And the title is "The Sickest Flee Private Medicare. Switching to Regular Medicare Shifted Costs from Insurers such as United Healthcare to the taxpayers." And it's a lengthy article. You're not going to be able to read it while you are on the air. But one of you, if you have a Guy Friday or a Gail Friday or a Guy Friday, can read it and then kind of make a couple of notes and then give it to you. And then in the same Wall Street Journal on B6, which is the business section, same date, it's DOJ challenges United Health's $3.3 billion deal for amidnitis. I think that's
George, you're honestly very smart. You're a very, very smart person, George. George, I mean, I get the Wall Street Journal, and I also have the subscription online. So I'm going to read that article. I can track it down online, and I'll find it within a minute. But I'm very happy you mentioned what you just said. Why? Because this is a big side of this story that the media is really not giving a lot of play to, and you just touched on it. So apparently Brian Thompson and other senior executives at United Healthcare were under investigation by the Department of Justice. So when he was gunned down yesterday, in fact, he had the DOJ investigating him and other executives. And apparently what they were looking at was insider trading. And here's exactly what the DOJ was looking into. Apparently, Brian Thompson and several other executives got news that the Department of Justice was investigating, as you pointed out, one of their big acquisitions that they said consolidated their position in the market so much that it violated antitrust laws. And so they knew, oh no, we're going to have a big Department of Justice investigation for us violating, antitrust laws. And then, because they knew that this investigation was coming and it was going to tank the stock price, because everyone gets nervous. Oh my God, what? They're being investigated? Oh, dump the stock. Before the shareholders knew, before the public knew, that's when Brian Thompson and others sold over $100 million worth of stock. And one of them, not Thompson, one of them made $85 million off of this. Apparently Thompson made over 11 million. I think, was it 11.1 million, according to, I believe this is the New York Post. So, and it was the first time that he had sold his stock since he became the CEO in 2021. So shareholders were livid because they're like, hold on, you guys sell this off when you know an investigation is coming, and that's going to tank the stock price. We lose our shirts, but you guys make out like bandits? So you've got potentially very disaffected employees who may have had shares, shareholders who felt they were left holding the bag, or you've got people who were denied coverage. So there's a lot of potential suspects here. But, this guy wasn't a saint. I mean, I'm sorry. Look, I know he's got a wife, he's got children, he's got family. I'm not trying to besmirch the guy. But he was under Department of Justice investigation for insider trading and for violating antitrust laws. And that, I think, could be a major reason why somebody put out a hit on him. George, what say you?
Yeah, but you see, you followed the article and I did not. The main article was the disaffected sons and daughters of their mothers who have reached the age of 96, 95, 94, and they only had a couple of months to live. And United Healthcare kind of made it almost dropped them. But I'm not a legal beagle. But you also know, Jeff, you're up in Boston, Stewart's hospitals. Similar story.
No, it's excellent, George. Excellent point. Really,
and also, who was one of the board members on Stewart's? Boehner was the former Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
The whole system is corrupt.
It is.
And he was the guy from Stewart's is about 55 years old. He married this trophy wife about maybe 25 years old, 25 years younger than him. And while the proceedings were going on, and closing all the hospitals and causing all of this disarray, he was in Paris, France, watching the Olympics, watching his 25-year-old or 26-year-old wife perform in the equestrian trials. Also, you're from Canada, I believe, Jeff, right?
Originally, yes, George.
Okay. There was about 5-6 years ago, maybe less than that, there were two billionaire husband and wife team, and they were hung in their own house. I don't know if that's ever been resolved. I said billionaires. I don't. The article I have someplace. Maybe it's buried someplace.
No, you're right. It was a big story up in Canada. They were, let's just put it this way, mega wealthy. Okay, whether they were billionaires or almost billionaires. No, and that's been unresolved. That was a big case in Canada, similar to this. That was huge. Everybody was talking about it. No, look, George, I think there's no question. There is so much corporate corruption and so much corporate greed that this is, I think, what's starting to happen, is starting to spill over onto the streets. You know, and that's why we're starting to resemble like some of these, Eastern European dictatorships, because they're run by oligarchs. And, we're being slowly run by oligarchs. And I think that's the point. You've got so much corruption now with not just United Healthcare, but all of these big health insurance companies. I mean, this is disgusting. And, you're right. There are horror stories. You have grandmothers, grandfathers in their 90s dying of cancer. And then they just say, well, what's the point of us insuring them? They're going to die anyway. So the most cost-effective thing is just pull the plug. No, they're on their own. And, and it's easy for them to say, but that's someone's mother. That's someone's father. That's someone's grandmother, grandfather. And, look, I don't know. We don't know why this person did it. I don't like to speculate. But is it beyond the bounds of credulity to say, hey, some guy sees his grandmother dying and United Healthcare says we're not going to cover you anymore. And he says, you know what? The hell with this guy. $25,000 and take him out. I'm not saying you do it. I'm not justifying it. But I could easily see that as a motive. Now, that's what his wife is saying. They asked, the police called and spoke. Her name is Paulette. Paulie. She goes by Paulie. Paulie Thompson. 51 years old. They got 2 kids, 2 sons. And they said, could you think of a motive? And she said, well, he was getting a lot of death threats. And they're like, what? They go, oh, yeah. And he goes, well, over what? Lack of coverage. Either they were cutting off people's coverage, or they were denying them coverage, or whatever it was. But he's the CEO, and he has to make decisions on who do we cover, who do we not cover, and who do we honor, and who do we not honor. And they found out where we live, and they kept calling us at home. They call him on his cell phone. They call him at the office, and they're saying, I'm going to kill you. And she said he was worried, she was worried, and this is a nightmare now for her and her family. 617-266-6868. And just on that note, Mike is the one that raised this to me at our pre-show production meeting. He said, Jeff, have you been following this whole Brian Thompson assassination? I go, yeah, of course. I mean, who isn't? He says, I've been on Twitter, X, all night last night. And he goes, so much of what you're seeing on Twitter and X is this guy had it coming. And Mike is saying, this is what I find most disturbing about all this. This guy was a human being. He had a wife, as I said, he got 2 sons, he's got family, he's got a mother, he's got, colleagues who did apparently revere and respect and love the guy. And just the way people are just, yeah, he's a healthcare insurance company CEO. Better dead than alive. Good. Somebody finished him off. Good for him. Good for him. I mean, this is sick. How casually, just without blinking an eye, people will just jump on social media and cheer on the brazen execution and murder and assassination of a human being. If he was corrupt, investigate the guy, charge him, convict him, and put him behind bars. But you don't shoot the guy in the chest, for God's sake, on the streets of Midtown Manhattan. I'm sorry, this is not Belarus. At least not yet. Chuck in Concord. Thanks for holding, Chuck, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I want to say good morning to Kevin, my boss.
Okay.
First thing I want to say is let's make private health care great again. I want to know where the NIH is and where Dr. Fauci was and what they got to do with it. Private health care can go a long ways and make a lot of money in our country for the private citizens and stuff. Something's really sneaky about this. I want to ask Dr. Fauci what part he plays in this.
Well, apparently, I don't know if you've heard this, Chuck, but Biden, I'm just going again by media reports. Politico is reporting this. Other liberal outlets who are very close to Biden and his team. So this is coming from outlets with access to Biden and his people. Biden now is considering a preemptive pardon. I'm not saying it's anything to do with this assassination, but just in general, a preemptive pardon for Fauci, for Adam Schiff, for Jack Smith, the special counsel, for Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney. So, but getting back to your point about Fauci, Biden is saying, nah, he needs a preemptive pardon. Basically what a preemptive pardon is, Chuck, is a pardon on anything Fauci has ever done his entire life. What he's done, may have done, could have done, any actual crimes, potential crimes, he's going to pardon everything. So it looks now like he's going to pardon all of his friends and maybe pardon all of his family. Now, nothing official. He hasn't done it yet, but I'm just telling you that's Politico's reporting this and many other outlets are saying, no, he's talking about a blanket preempt. What he did for Hunter, he now wants to do for Tony Chicken Little, for Fauci, and for Liz Cheney, and for Adam Schiff, and you just go right down the list. For his entire family, he's even talking Jack Smith, the special counsel. So that makes me, then right away, Fauci's guilty as sin. We know it. That's why he's trying to protect him. Adam Schiff is guilty as sin because he lied about the Russia collusion hoax and tried to frame Trump. So he's got to protect him. Then what the hell? Liz Cheney. Everyone's like, well, why is Liz Cheney on the list? I'll tell you why Liz Cheney's on the list. Because she destroyed evidence on the January 6th committee. And that's what's going to come out when Trump is inaugurated on January 20th. And if Kash Patel is the FBI director and Pam Bondi's the attorney general. That's why now he's got to protect Liz Cheney. Jack Smith, he's got to protect Jack Smith because Jack Smith was given a direct order by Merrick Garland and by the big guy. Joey, I want you to get Trump at all costs. Make it happen. So now they want to do a preemptive pardon for everybody, Chuck. That's how this criminal gang rolls. Final word to you, Chuck.
Okay, I'm here at the JPVA, Socialized Healthcare, and I'm going to visit Dr. Whack, I'm going to visit Dr. Quack, I'm going to visit my witch doctor, and I'm going to visit my voodoo doctor. God bless you all.
Thank you, Chuck. God bless you, my friend. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a gang of thieves. It really is. I don't want to get too off topic. But just, you read this and go, are you guys serious? You want to do pardons? No one's been charged with a crime yet. And you're already pardoning everybody? You phony, you fraud, you. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me very quickly, I want to throw this log on the fire. Fox News is reporting, and now all the other media outlets have picked it up as well. CNN, but everybody, local media in New York, most of the papers are now reporting this, that apparently on the casings, they found 3 shell casings. There was deny, depose, and defend were found on the casings. That this is what he engraved in the ammunition. The shooter. Deny, depose, and defend. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what deny, depose, defend means, but what I'm saying is, I don't know what that's in relation to. Deny what? Depose? I'm thinking maybe what, deposition? Is that part of the DOJ probe or the DOJ investigation into insider trading? I don't know. I'm just, and defend. Is it what? Defend the company at all costs? I don't know. I'm just curious, do any of you have a theory what you think deny, depose, and defend means, and why that will be put on the ammunition? Unless, again, it's a potential false flag. Put something there to take police off the trail. You always have to, the pros do that. I mean, it's, you know, they know how to detract, they know how to deflect, and they know how to distract. 617-266-6868 is the number. So, yeah, it's everywhere now. Chilling messages found on shell casings at the scene. And so it's deny, depose, and defend. Vince in Germany. Thanks for holding, Vince, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Vince.
Deny, depose, defend is based on a book. Daily Mail's reporting it. It bears similarity to the title of a 2010 book on why insurance companies don't pay claims and what you can do about it, called Delay, Deny, and Defend. What I wanted to bring up is the fact that the level of professionalism is really earmarked by the number of mistakes made. So the fact that the guy went into a Starbucks prior to the hit and actually purchased something, exposing himself to be identified. Now, I know he was wearing a mask, and I know that doesn't really raise a lot of flags when someone comes in with a mask on these days, especially in New York City. But the fact that people, you know, they got cameras everywhere. You got RFID scanners. So anything electronic can be picked up. They can trace you. It just gives you more exposure. Now, you know, they talk about the subsonic ammunition.
Vince, can you please hang on? I'm up against a hard break. We're going to go right back to Vince. Vince, I think, is making a very compelling case. He may have been a pro, but more likely a semi-pro. Great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go right back to Vince in Germany. Vince, I just want to set it up for you because obviously you're a veteran, you're ex-military yourself. You can tell us exactly how professional this job was. So, according to what you said, and it's true, Daily Mail is now reporting that detectives now investigating the shooting have now reportedly found shell casings in which the words deny, depose, and defend were inscribed on the bullets. And they believe it is tied to a 2010 book on why insurance companies don't pay claims and what you can do about it, called Delay, Deny, Defend. Apparently, there have been a lot of activists targeting United Healthcare, saying they have not been making payments on claims or delaying payments on claims, and that he was getting a lot of death threats. And apparently this book is by J.M. Feynman, and I'm looking at it right now. It's called Delay, Deny, Defend. Why insurance companies don't pay claims and what you can do about it. Now, what they're also saying, Vince, is that the shooter knew every aspect of Thompson's schedule because he was waiting for him at a particular door when he was approaching the Hilton. That there are multiple doors into the Hilton, so he knew exactly what door Brian Thompson was heading into. And so they say this shows not just that this was a targeted attack, but that this person had considerable inside knowledge of his schedule. So knowing everything now that we know, Vince, you're saying, number one, he should not have gone into the Starbucks to buy water and the power bars, even though he was wearing a mask. That would still expose him to cameras and to surveillance footage. And then we got cut off by the break. So please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, so you want to distance yourself as much as you can from any bystanders, anybody that can identify you. And, you know, these days with all sorts of electronic signature, you know what I mean, either through your credit cards or your phone, anything, I mean, the less exposure, the better. He definitely knew his schedule. He definitely knew how to identify him. So that shows a degree of insider knowledge. I want to get back to the weapon used, the silencer, the fact that he had to recycle the gun a couple times points to two things. Either he was using subsonic ammunition or the silencer wasn't completely seated on the weapon properly, which would cause it to not be able to cycle after each round shot. But any professional would have practiced before he did that hit. He would have practiced with the weapon used, with the ammunition to be used, and with the silencer. So that shows that either A, he wasn't familiar, or maybe he knew that that was going to be the case, and he went through the drills. But the other thing too is the fact that they said they recovered a water bottle. Well, right there you can pull DNA evidence off a water bottle, a cigarette butt. It's not just about fingerprints and eyewitness identification these days. There are so many forensic signatures that the police can pick up to trace back to this person. So I think that the level of professionalism used is going to be attributed to the number of mistakes that he made.
And Vince, and what you're saying is this, Vince, please, I promise I'll let you finish. You're saying he's already made several serious mistakes, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I'm not a policeman.
No, I get it. But you're ex-military.
I'm not a CSI. I don't watch CSI on TV and think I know. Actually, I hate it when my wife watches that stuff. You know what I mean? But
because she's an expert now, right?
No, but you know, it's like curiosity. But anyway, the last thing I want to leave you with is the psyche of the shooter. There's a fascinating book that was written years ago. It's called On Killing, and it's the psychological cost of learning to kill in war and society by a Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman, who used to be a professor at West Point. I actually knew his son. I served with his son, and that's how I became familiar with the book. And it talks about how the military programs you, desensitizes you to kill, all the way down to like the type of target you used on the range, right? It's always a silhouette target to desensitize you from shooting at a human-shaped object. So it doesn't necessarily say that the guy was a professional, but he was definitely trained.
In other words, you're saying most likely either ex-military, ex-law enforcement, and your point, Vince, is the military almost trains you to be desensitized to killing people. So this guy could easily be ex-military, knows how to handle a gun, and would do it for whatever, $25,000 or $50,000, correct?
Yes, and you know the signature to that is the increase in post-traumatic stress on military people. It is because they've been desensitized in killing, and that has second and third order effects after the fact.
Interesting. Vince, I always learn something when you call. Vince, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so there you have it. What say you? Was this a professional hit job? What do you think the motive was? And is now New York City so dangerous that tourists are going to start to stay away? Your calls next. 1-7-266-6868. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. So here is now the absolute latest information, my friends. According now to law enforcement and the media reports, the gunman was at least a semi-professional, was waiting for Brian Thompson at a specific door at the Hilton Hotel where he was going to be talking at an investors conference. He was there for about 5 minutes. He had gone to a Starbucks just before, purchased a bottle of water, grabbed a couple of bought a couple of power bars as well, and was wearing a black mask. Now, right away, you tell me if you agree or disagree with this. You know, this is a consequence of COVID, where it's just considered normal now. And you can see the surveillance footage. There he is at a Starbucks, you know, dressed in, you know, like dark clothes, but he's got a mask covering most of his face. And nobody thinks anything of it. If you remember, before COVID, if you walk in with a mask, people think you're going to hold up the place. Right? It's like, well, why does this person have a mask on? I mean, it's not that cold outside. It's not snowing. It's not a blizzard. But ever since COVID, it's normal now for people to walk around and covering their face. And because it's normal to cover your face, you can get away with crimes now that you couldn't get away with before because your face is mostly blocked or completely blocked. So there he is with a mask. You know, could just see his eyes. That's it. And he's buying water and he's buying a couple of power bars. Now, he is completely cool, calm. He's got gloves. He walks behind Thompson and almost nonchalantly puts a couple of bullets into him. Thompson falls on the ground. He's trying to crawl for his life. Then you can see the shooter go by Thompson and put one more bullet into him. Police now say they found 3 live ammunition rounds, 9mm, 3 spent ammunition rounds. They say now that there were some ominous words inscribed on the shell casings: deny, depose, and defend, which they believe is connected to a 2010 book on how insurance companies scam people out of their insurance claims. So it's starting to look, again, it's preliminary, that this may have been a hit related to United Healthcare denying claims to an individual or a family or whoever, and they said, you know what? We're going to pay this guy back. You know what? One of ours dies. One of you is going to die. Now, what is to me just mind-boggling about this is that in execution style, remember, this is Midtown Manhattan. There are people, pedestrians, witnesses everywhere. It may be the most surveilled place on the face of the earth. There are surveillance cameras on every corner, everywhere. He almost disappears into thin air. I'm telling you, it's like a spy movie. It's boom, boom, one more boom, and then runs into an alley. Now, allegedly, he drops his water bottle. They can get DNA, and they believe a phone. They discovered a phone. They did find a phone believed to be linked to him. And I think they're trying to comb through it right now. He then goes from the alley quickly onto an e-bike, an electric bike, and then goes on the electric bike, which apparently you need a prepaid, a credit card or a debit card or a prepaid credit card to get to use. So they could get information from that. But then is quickly bicycles over to Central Park. He's got a gray backpack, presumably with clothes, and he's gone. He disappears into the night or into the morning. Forgive me. And there was an intense manhunt almost immediately. They're not able thus far to find him or locate him. It's like he just ghosted himself. It's like he just disappeared. Now, let me ask all of you. By the way, he used a handgun, illegal in most places in New York. He used a silencer, illegal in New York City. So that goes to show you right off the bat, gun control, it don't work. It doesn't work. Certainly didn't stop this execution, that's for sure. Now, what I find amazing is we've given up so much of our civil liberties in exchange for the promise of security, which is, well, we've got all this CCTV, this video camera footage everywhere. Every street corner. By the way, Central Park, they got drones. There's drones flying overhead, all over Central Park. So if it's not a camera watching you, it's a drone watching you. And the argument is always made, well, it's for increased safety. It's for increased security. Or if there is a crime, the footage will help us catch the criminal. So far, it may end up catching the criminal. I don't want to prejudge anything. But this guy commits a murder at 6:46 a.m. And apparently, according to police, by 6:49 a.m., he's gone. He's in Central Park, and they don't know where he is. They can't track him. They can't find him. And there's been now a massive manhunt underway now for over 24 hours. And it's like this guy, as I said, just disappeared into the air. 617-266-6868 is the number. That's why I've been saying this for a long time. Never exchange liberty for security. It was Benjamin Franklin that warned us. Because you end up getting neither. You end up losing your liberty, and pretty much now, it's Big Brother. You walk that. I'm amazed. You look at that surveillance footage, and I'm happy it's there because we can at least potentially find him. Don't get me wrong, but it covers everything. Really, you see everybody going, very distinct faces. Your every move is practically being tracked. So we've lost a lot of our privacy, a lot of our civil liberties. And are we really much safer? 617-266-6868. John in Westford. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, John.
I think this was mostly to send a message to other CEOs. This guy was definitely a professional. And why did he pick New York City? An easier, cleaner, more professional way would have been just to take him out with a rifle with a scope. From a distance in the country. Get him while he's going into a store. The guy, he knew his path, he knew his route so well, knew his life so well that he deliberately chose the most difficult area to take him out.
Or, John, just to reinforce what you're saying, the headquarters of United Healthcare is in, Minnesota. It's, you want to send a message if you could have taken him out in Minnesota. But you're right. You do it in Midtown Manhattan and look at the message. It's one thing to kill a CEO in Minnesota, especially in suburban Minnesota or even rural Minnesota. It's in Midtown in that kind of a dramatic way. John, if he's making a point, he's made it. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. Yep. It's to send a message. It's scary. 16% of our GDP is healthcare. And who knows what he was into. It's a message to others.
Well, apparently he was being investigated for insider trading, where they sold off over, $101 million in stock because they knew there was going to be a huge probe for violating antitrust laws. So they didn't even tell their own shareholders. They didn't tell the public. And they said, you know what? The stock price is going to bottom out. Let's sell now and make money while we can. So he sold stock. I think, over $15 million worth of stock? He profited, I think, $11 million himself in his own pocket. One guy, I'll get your name if you want, $85 million off of selling that stock. And that's why now they were being investigated for insider trading. And so shareholders felt defrauded. I don't blame them. Think about it, John. Okay. Just, you buy the stock price at $50. Let me just make up a number. Now it's at 100. But only a few CEOs know that you're going to be investigated now for violating antitrust laws. So the CEOs are like, oh man, if this gets out, once the Wall Street Journal or Barron's reports this, it's going to tank the stock price. It's going to go down to $20 or $10. Well, we're going to lose our shirts. Let's sell now and pocket the profit. But the shareholders and the employees who have bought in stocks as well, they only find out when the world finds out 3 weeks later. And by then, the stock price has collapsed. So you bought it at 50, it's now worth $10. You've lost your shirt. But then you find out Brian Thompson put $11 million in his pocket. This other guy put $85 million in his pocket. So they knew this was coming, and they took care of themselves but left us holding the bag? I mean, I would be pissed off if I were them too, wouldn't you? Hold on, did we lose John? Okay. John, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, look, there was a lot of dirt going on. No question. No question. And a message has been sent. 750 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868. Okay, just very quickly, it has nothing to do with the show or what happened in Midtown or the murder of Brian Thompson or insurance companies or whatever. So I get a call. I'm still on the air. It's about 7:39, 7:40, and I see it's my daughter, Ava Kuhner. So I'm like, I wonder what's going on at home. So I wait till the break, do the commercial, the whole bit, do my spot, and then I call her. Ava, what's wrong, sweetheart? Why are you calling Daddy? You know I'm on the air. This is my wonderful daughter. Daddy, it's really snowing here. I just wanted to call to see if you made it to work okay and that you're all safe and sound. I'm like, really? She goes, yeah, Daddy, I was so worried about you. And then Grace gives me heck when I get her whatever she wants. How can I not get her whatever she wants, huh? I mean, look at this. Look at this. My own daughter calls. It's snowing and she's thinking about me. That's why I spoil my daughter. How can I not spoil my daughter? Anyway, let that go. So, as I was telling Mike, after I got off the phone with my wonderful daughter, Ava, I said, Mike, I swear, this is like an episode out of Law and Order. Like, really? So listen now to this. So we talked about the insider trading and how they sold over $100 million worth of stock because they knew an investigation from the Department of Justice over violating antitrust laws was coming. So now they're selling stock when they shouldn't be selling stock. And they defrauded the company because the stock price completely collapsed while they all made out like bandits. One of them made out to the tune of $85 million. Now, it looks like Brian Thompson put about $11 million in his pocket. Well, this is a text I just got about a couple minutes ago from 781. Jeff, several media outlets are now reporting United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was fatally shot yesterday in what authorities are describing as a targeted attack. But here's the big key piece of information, Jeff. He was under investigation by the Department of Justice for insider trading and was going to accept a plea deal. Now, I don't know if that's true. I have to verify it and corroborate it myself. But I'm sure 781 probably read it or heard it somewhere. If he was going to accept a plea deal, and I underline the word if, because we don't know. But if, well, I'll tell you this. You know who I'm looking at right now is my main suspects. It's like Law and Order. I'm looking at the other guys, the other senior executives who made out, that was highway robbery, who made out like bandits when they sold off all that stock as part of this insider trading probe. Because if Brian Thompson is going to spill the beans and say, yes, A, B, and C knew about the probe into the antitrust laws, knew it was going to tank the stock price, they made a conspiracy to sell off all the stock so they can make a ton of money. This was exactly what you're investigating him for. This was insider trading to a T, and I'm willing to testify and turn state's evidence. Then you've got a massive motive now for putting a contract hit out on him. Now, again, speculation, but if he was accepting a plea deal, holy mackerel. You want to talk about a motive. That's a motive. And that goes right to the top executives who are under investigation. 266-6868. And just on a larger point, very quickly, and I said this to Mike, look, this is what's going to kill this country. I'm telling you, if we don't turn things around, there's just too much money, too much greed, too much avarice, too much money. When you're talking about all of this money sloshing around, and they can, let's sell and make 85 million. Let's sell and make 100 million. Let's sell and make 120 million. And you've got all, this temptation to break the law and defraud your shareholders and your employees. And, do these insider trading gigs where you're selling high because the stock price is going to go low because of actions that your company, that you actually took. And, you're raking in 50, 60, 80, $100 million. I mean, the temptation to break the law is too great, corruption. And then the temptation to start committing murder is too great because of corruption. And that, by the way, that's Russia, that's Ukraine, that's Belorussia or Belarus as it's now called. That's some of these Eastern European countries to a T. These are all powerful oligarchs who control powerful companies and corporations where you've got billions of dollars sloshing around. The temptation is just too great. And that leads to massive corruption, bribery, influence peddling, and yes, contract killings, murder. 617-266-6868. New York is now becoming Moscow. Sid in Middlesex. Thanks for holding, Sid, and welcome.
Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Sid?
Not too bad. Enjoy your show. Tough job. Listen, you seem like a very well-read person to me. The FBI comes up multiple times on your show in every which way but loose, and probably a few more you never even thought of. Anyways, I got a book for you about, you want to talk about hitmen, killers, and the FBI. Going back a little bit, I come in late from work, say around 1 a.m. I put on the satellite radio before you go to sleep. Judge Norrie was on from coast to coast. He says, we have a very special guest tonight. He goes, the whole show, the whole 4 hours is going to be with this author. He goes, I very, very rarely do that, but this guy is going to prove me right. And he was. I made some coffee, and even though I got in at 1, I listened to the whole 4 hours. He wrote a book called Deal with the Devil, and it's about a guy in New York. He's a capo. Scarpa, Greg Scarpa, not Scarpa with an F, Scarpa with a P. The F guy is in Philadelphia. This guy in New York. The things that he did for the FBI, with the FBI. One real quick example, because I'm on a coffee run. Remember Mississippi burning years ago, the civil rights, the three kids that went missing?
Yes, the civil rights kids in Mississippi, yes, in the 60s.
The FBI was under tremendous pressure to find the bodies, to find out what happened. I mean, people knew what happened, but anyways, their biggest lead was down in a small town, down south, the guy that ran the Klan down there, and he was insulated. Everybody in the town, from the kids, the wives, the husband, everybody, no one was going to say a word about him. They went and got Scarpa in New York, the FBI, brought him down there, told him the story. He went and got in some jeans and a T-shirt, bought a pickup, went to the guy's appliance store. I want to buy a fridge or a washer. I'm by myself. Could you help me load it? He goes, yeah, pull around back. Pulls around back. Snaps the guy, takes him somewhere, torches him to the end of the earth, finds out the United States gives it to the FBI. They bring him back to New York. And that's just a taste of what's in this book. It's very thick, and the author, very, very, like how Stephen King writes, very descriptive, going on and on and on. And this guy, Scarpa, he makes the a-hole from South Boston look like a Girl Scout. And you'll read this, and if you don't say, wow, I'll buy you a steak.
where you want.
Well, Sid, I can just tell you this. I mean, the FBI has always been notorious. It's a den of thieves and criminals. And, Whitey Bulger, as you know, worked with the FBI. It's notorious. And he did all kinds of killings. They didn't care. He was pushing drugs that were literally killing children. Killing children. They didn't care. Kids were overdosing. They didn't care. As long as he kept giving them information that they wanted against the mob in the North End. And, Whitey famously said the FBI is worse than the gangs. They're worse than we are. They're worse than organized crime. So, I'm not shocked. That's why, look, honestly, I don't want to get sidetracked. We need Kash Patel. Kash Patel is going to, his book, Government Gangsters, just the title says it all. The gangsters now are running the government. And really, the FBI is a mafia state. That's what it's become. The DOJ is essentially a mafia state. And like a mafia don, you've got now Joe Biden. This story's everywhere. He's now seriously considering preemptive pardons for everybody. Jack Smith, pardon for him. Liz Cheney, pardon for her. Adam Schiff, pardon for him. He's a senator now, for God's sake. What does a senator need a pardon for? He's just going, Fauci, a pardon. Chris Wray, a pardon. James Comey, a pardon. So they're going to pardon everybody. He's going to pardon his whole family. So it's obvious now what's happening. They don't want Trump to expose the swamp, which is not really a swamp. It's a cesspool. And look, Sid, we talked a lot about what, yesterday about Pete Hegseth. He came out saying he's going to fight this thing to the end. He's not going to give up. Trump has his back. He's going to force this fight like hell for the confirmation. He's going to get confirmed. He wants to be the next Secretary of Defense. But I'm warning everybody, if they can kill Pete Hegseth, they're going to go after Robert F. Kennedy. And after Robert F. Kennedy, they're going to go after Tulsi Gabbard. And after Tulsi Gabbard, trust me, the big prize is going to be Kash Patel. They're not going to stop until they tank the nomination of Kash Patel. So Trump has to realize if he cuts Pete Hegseth loose, they're going to go after RFK, then they're going to go after Tulsi, and then they're going to go after Kash Patel. Because the swamp is going to protect the swamp at all costs. So, yeah, they're vicious. They're absolutely vicious, Sid. And that, to me, is the scariest thing of all. We have criminals and corrupt traitors, political gangsters, running all of our key institutions. And I think that's the ultimate reason why Trump won. The country now senses we're on the wrong track. And if we don't stop this now, it's going to be too late. Final word to you, Sid.
See how deep you could dig into this. Remember when the a-hole from Southeast Brother, they subpoenaed him to Congress and he refused. Then they compelled him and he had to go there. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. On his way there, George Bush sealed as national security stuff about the a-hole's brother. What was so important that he sealed? That's true. Look it up. Find out what the hell he sealed, and there's two stakes for you.
Sid,
and
go ahead. Please finish your point. Go ahead.
I'm going to let you go. You were talking about Belarus. Probably 5 books ago, I got a book called The Belarus Secret by John Locke. It's about the passports. I don't know whether you've read it or not, but I look forward to reading it. It's about the how they, the rat lines, the passports that they got.
See, what happens now, Sid, is when you read books on Belarus or Russia or Ukraine or any of these other, Eastern European hellholes, it's like, you're like, oh my God, it's, instead of Minsk, which is the capital of Belarus, it's like Manhattan. It's just, you can replace Minsk or Moscow with Manhattan. It's just, am I in Russia or in Belarus or Kiev or am I in New York or Boston? It's just, that's what's starting to happen. That's why we need Trump yesterday. I'm like, come on, let's go. January 20th, let's go. I mean, I love Christmas. I love to spend time with the family. But honestly, I'm like, let's get this inauguration going. Come on, let's go. Speed up the clock here. Go. Tanya in Boston. Thanks for holding, Tanya, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi. Well, this whole insider trading thing is definitely coming out, and I think that's what happened with this guy. Initially, just from listening to your show, I came in for a split second thinking, okay, maybe this guy wanted to be caught. Maybe he had a terminal disease himself that he got denied, and he's just like, F you, I'm done. Or maybe he had a family member. But now, I'm 20, 30 minutes into your show, and all this other stuff is starting to come out of the woodwork about insider trading and plea deals and this and that, and I guess we'll find out more in the next couple of hours. But if that's the case, guess what? They learned from the best, our wonderful federal government, doing the exact same thing. So, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think a lot of CEOs and a lot of corruption and a lot of stuff is going to start coming out with all these other companies. I mean, healthcare is a huge thing. You got plenty of CEOs making tons and tons of money. And yeah, everybody wants to go into business and they want to make money. But this company, their healthcare is garbage. And they went and bought off all these smaller companies, bought them out. And now they're profiting $450 billion. Give me a break. You're not supposed to profit like that in healthcare. What is this like? Like, do you ever watch the movie The Rainmaker, where, it's all about insurance fraud and how they automatically deny everybody at once, hoping that, on their first attempt, hoping that they'll find another way to get money. And they'll, there was statistics that said that, patients are denied. They kind of just feel like they're at a lost cause, and what else do? Some die, some get money from a friend, some, other things come up, but majority of them won't fight it and do the appeals and complain and this and that and take all that effort to do that. And it's like, what? Is that what United Healthcare is doing? Is it a Rainmaker story here? And now we've got all the insider trading going on. So I'll bet you if somebody paid that guy to shoot him, it's probably one of those guys that made a ton of money. And those guys are probably going to protect this guy. That guy's probably long gone in another country by now, for as far as we know.
Well, Tanya, that's a very interesting point. Because, the way this guy's just fallen off the face of the earth, it's really eerie. It really is. But, Tanya, I want to return to something you said about the corruption, and not just in healthcare, but across, corporate America, which is completely true, and the government. The government's corrupt. See, the elites are corrupt. That's what political elites, our media and our economic corporate elites, and Hollywood, our cultural elites. So all our elites are completely corrupt. Very different from how you and I live, how we live our lives, just in every way, okay? But I just want to go back to something you touched on. I'm just going now by what the media is reporting. According to the media, and I don't begrudge anybody their salary, Brian Thompson made, to be specific, $9.9 million a year. Okay, $10 million. Let's not quibble. And he's been making this kind of money now for several years. Now, he lives in, Minnesota, Minnesota. Not to knock down Minnesota, but it's not a high cost. It's a low cost living. So he lived in a $1 million mansion, which in Minnesota, I'm telling you, is like 20 million here in Boston. It was a massive mansion. I can't tell you how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms. I don't begrudge him, but I'm saying $1 million in Minnesota buys you whatever you can possibly want. Okay, it's a dream mansion. How much more money do you need? Again, I don't begrudge anybody working hard and making money, but you got to then get involved in insider trading? Like, this is what I'm saying. You're making tens and tens of millions of dollars. He's got a boat. Him and his wife, there's pictures of him on the boat with the wife and the kids. You've got a boat. You've got multiple luxury cars. You've got a mansion. You're living in Minnesota, which is so low cost of living. You can buy anything you want. And you still got to get involved in insider trading? and defraud your fellow employees and shareholders and put another $11 million in your pocket? Again, these are all allegations, okay? A dead man can't defend himself. What I'm just saying is the effing greed. That's what I find sickening. Final word to you, Tanya.
Yeah, and I read about that, and I saw, he posts on Instagram. I love, I didn't know who this guy was 2 days ago until all this came out. And then I read, he loves voting with his kids and his wife and this and, well, I'm sorry, but you and your executives were making a lot of decisions that affected people's lives, first of all. And I don't have United Healthcare, but I'm a pharmacist. I dealt with United Healthcare with insurances for 20 years. And it's a nightmare. And to hear this and to know that these people are at the level where they could make changes for the people that have to have this insurance, and then to hear everything that's coming out of the woodwork, I'm sorry, but it just makes me sick to hear that, oh, you love voting with your kids, you love this, you love that. It's like, are you not thinking about what seat you're sitting at and how many other people in this country could have those same pleasures like you have if you had not done this crooked the way you did?
Bingo. Excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself, Tanya. And not even that. Just give them a care. Give them coverage. Give them insurance. I mean, just how do you sleep at yourself with that? Honestly, how do you sleep with yourself at night? How do you look at yourself in the mirror? Okay, you're living in his palace and you've got the boating and your trips and travel and you're rich beyond your wildest imagination. But look at the people you've buried. I mean, have you no fear of God that you're going to meet your maker and be held accountable for all this? Ugh. Yes, it's great. I'm telling you, it's America's vice. It's our greatest sin is greed. If anything destroys us, it's going to be our greed. Remember, love of money, as the Bible warns, is the root of all evil. 8 is the number. I just want to clarify because many are texting the Kuhner Man, and you can text us 70470, 70470, and many are also emailing the Kuhner Man, saying, Jeff, what are you, going all pink on us here now? What are you, a socialist? No. Hey, au contraire, as the French would say. On the contrary. Hey, I was born and raised in Canada. I've seen government health care, socialized medicine. It is a disaster. Okay, it's a disaster. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm not arguing for Medicare for all or the government takeover of health care. That would be even worse. Much worse than what we have now. No, I'm not. Look, I truly believe in the free market. You work hard, you deserve all the money you can get. God bless you. I'm not making a socioeconomic point. I'm not saying, take from the rich or, he's making too much money, tax him no, I'm making a moral point. When is enough enough? And that you would engage potentially, he hasn't been convicted, he was just being investigated, but, insider trading when you're making tens and tens of millions of dollars. It's greed. That's what I mean. It's not legitimate pursuit of wealth or money or success. It's just you can't stop, and it's the only thing that matters. It's more important than morality. It's more important than God. It's more important than family. It's more important than country or patriotism. So many people selling our country out for money. So, yeah, no one believes in the free market more than Jeff Kuhner. Please don't misunderstand me. But, to me, as a Christian, as a patriot, as a decent, I like to think of myself as a decent, civilized human being. I'm not for sale. And there are some things I'm just not going to do for money. I'm sorry. That's greed. And it's one of the 7 deadly sins. And it's a deadly sin for a reason. 617, just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. 617-266-6868. Tommy in West Virginia. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Jeff, been listening to you this morning, and with the reports coming out of New York, this is sounding like a John Grisham novel. It really is, and I agree. He's got a suppressor on a handgun. this was a professional hit, in my opinion, being an armchair quarterback. But and I think I've got a new favorite caller. I mean, I love to hear from Barb in Maryland, Lou from Rhode Island, and Mark from New Hampshire, and then the other guy who raises chickens in New York. I forget his name, but
Mel.
That's Mel, yeah. But that's Sid. Really waking me up, because I remember that movie of where they found the three civil rights workers buried in a landfill or something to that effect. And how did the FBI super sleuths do that? And from what he said, they hired a thug to go down and torture them, the head of the Klan. And anyway, could I just circle back to your discussion yesterday with regards to Pete Hegseth for a brief moment?
Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Okay, so you were talking about Ted Kennedy. I have a photo of Ted Kennedy back in April of, it was the fall of '91, where he was at Boston City Hospital at a labor rally, and it was about unemployment extension. Now, I'm a union member, and a lot of my friends were laid off at that time, and Bush Sr. said he would not sign an unemployment extension. It was a very, very bad recession. Kennedy, at 10 o'clock in the morning, to describe his face, and it's on my Facebook page, he looked like a beefsteak tomato in the middle of September that was just starting to rot off the vine. I'm talking bright red. And he lost his train of thought twice during his speech. That's how pickled he was. And for these people to make an issue out of Pete Hegseth getting drunk at a bar and womanizing, and yet those are the same people that were lionizing Ted Kennedy when he passed away in 2010 as the courageous leader of the moral conscience of the United States Senate. I just don't want to hear it. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. But I hope Kuhner Country will call those rhino senators and tell them to vote in favor of Pete Hegseth, because this election was not about Trump. It was about cleaning up the damage that progressive Democrats have done to this country for the last 30 years. And people, you cannot sit on your laurels. You have to call. You have to take 10, 15 minutes out of your day and just blast some aide who's working for Joni Ernst or Lindsey Graham or Collins up in Maine. And I did that. I'm retired. I have time to do that. But that's the only way that we're going to get people like Hegseth pushed over the goal line, is we, people in Kuhner Country and conservatives in this country, have to start doing what Democrats do and use the same tactics.
Oh, amen. Tommy, look, the tide is starting to turn back in Hegseth's favor. A lot of phone calls were made yesterday, and you nailed it. It's Joni Ernst and Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham and Steve, they're the two behind the scenes who are trying to tank Hegseth's nomination. And we got to tell them no. No, the swamp is not going to win. Your days are over. Bulldozer 831 here on the great WRKO. Please, everybody, I'm going to go to the phone lines, I promise. But you got to hear, these are some really good messages on Messenger. You got to hear this. This is from Eric. Jeff, this is incredible. My wife and I are staying at the Hilton Hotel in New York tomorrow, the very one in which that poor guy Brian Thompson was assassinated, right through the weekend. My wife has never been to New York, so I want to take her to see New York City. I can't believe that we're going to have to step over a puddle of blood just to get into the hotel. My wife's first time to New York. She's truly seeing how it really is. It is sad. When was the last time you heard someone say, I love New York? Remember that phrase in the 1980s and early 90s? The commercials and, go to New York City or go to upstate New York or whatever. And we're like, I love New York. I remember watching it on TV all the time. It's been a long time. Ever since Rudy Giuliani left as mayor, it's gone right down. I mean, right down the toilet. 617-266-6868. Okay, this is from Marianne. Please, you got to listen to this. It's a very long message, so I can't read all of it. But I'm going to read, I think, some of the most pertinent parts. Jeff, and please, you got it, because it goes straight to United Healthcare and straight to Brian Thompson as the CEO. Jeff, I work in healthcare billing for a company that is expanding so fast it's unbelievable here in Florida. Anyway, we work with United Healthcare, and the amount of work we have to do to get claims paid is crazy. We bill a claim, it gets denied. We send as many appeals as we can until they tell us we have exhausted our appeals. So we either have to write it off, or they tell us it's the patient's responsibility. They count, it's exactly what Tanya said. They count on patients not fighting and just paying the bill. And so many patients don't know the ins and outs. They just pay even though they shouldn't. Now, she says, Marianne goes on to say, I advise anybody that has a problem with getting a claim paid to call the insurance commissioner in their state. Can they help? Sometimes, sometimes not. But she says it's always worth the call. But this is her larger point. Trying to get prior authorization for certain procedures that requires it is a nightmare. And these decisions are being made by people that are nothing more than bean counters. They know nothing about healthcare. And then they have to waste more of the doctor's time doing a peer-to-peer review, which will then most likely be denied anyway. So she says that out of the hundreds of insurance companies we work with, United Healthcare is the worst. The worst. So she then goes on to say, I'm telling you, the industry in general is nothing short of full of greed. And she goes on to say that please note that health insurance is not health care. Some prescriptions for chronic illnesses that are not curable are well over $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 a month. How are people supposed to pay that? That also now encompasses the drug companies. It's a big, horrible circle, and it needs a huge takedown and makeover. She says, Jeff, it's awful. Again, this man didn't deserve to lose his life, but he did deserve to be investigated and lose his position. The industry is as corrupt as anything, and United Healthcare is the worst of the worst. So, in other words, she's not surprised that she doesn't want him dead. Nobody wants this person dead. But she's not, basically people are saying, I'm not surprised this doesn't happen more often. With the way people are getting screwed and denied on their claims and coverage. Now, as to the larger point about greed, this is from Robert. And I've noticed this as well. Okay, it's not healthcare. It's not healthcare coverage or insurance. But I'm telling you, it's true. It really is true. Please listen to this. And thank you, Robert, for sending me that message. Jeff, about 20 years ago, my daughter and I went to a major college championship that her school was participating in. Before the game, I noticed several students going back and forth on their phones. I thought nothing of it until I heard several of them talking about betting, losing money, how much money they were going to make, getting extremely angry. Not about the fact that their team lost, because they won. So their team won. But because they were either going to lose money or someone was not going to pay them money. Bottom line, I was appalled. These students were there for other reasons than to watch their school play and win. And scalping tickets. They were there to make big money. Fast forward, those students are now adults, well into their careers. Bottom line, I think we have raised generations of people, and I so agree with this, who lack morals and any type of spiritual foundation. It's sad but true. It's all about the money. And now the sums are so enormous that it precipitates all types of extreme behaviors and reactions. We used to embrace delayed gratification. But now all I see is people wanting it all, and they want it all now. And there's no limit to what they want, whether it's financial, call it greed, power, but it's a sad state of affairs. Bingo. I'm telling you, like, really, Robert, if I can put that on a plaque, I would. I've noticed this again and again and again. Want it now, want it all, no limit. No limit. And I'm telling you, especially with Generation Z and millennials, not all, but some, it's like they're entitled to it. Like this idea, if you want something, you got to work for it? No. What work? Now. They're 25 years old and like, why aren't I the executive vice president? I'm like, what? You got to work 25 years to become an executive vice president. You think they'll just give it to you on a silver platter? It's this narcissism combined with this avarice, this limitless appetite. And it's not just the greed, it's the money now, the enormous sums. And notice though, nobody watches the NFL now. Everybody bets on the NFL. Have you noticed that? It's all DraftKings and look, you want to bet a friendly $10, $15, $20 bet. Please, it's your life. Go ahead. It's your money. Do what you want with it. But my point is, everything is money. It's just money, 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 money. And I see these NFL players who are making more money than you can possibly imagine. 20, 40, 50, $60 million a year to play a game. And are they happy? Are they grateful? No. They protest the national anthem. They spit on the country. They take a knee. So it's greed and more money, but they're less happy and less grateful and less satisfied. Am I wrong? 617-266-6868 to bring it full circle. You got this guy, Brian Thompson. Nothing justifies killing this guy. I feel bad for his wife and his kids. I honestly do. You're making $10 million a year. You're making tens and tens of millions of dollars. You're living in the lap of luxury. You got to start getting involved in insider trading? Like what, 10 mil isn't enough? 617-266-6868. Richard in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Richard, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Richard.
I just want to bring to the attention of your listeners that recently this recent vaccine, so-called vaccine against the J1 subvariant, has been proven to be pretty ineffective, and the whole thing has been pretty ineffective. People who have had this bioweapon injected into their bodies are dying by the millions, and it's not being reported. And Fauci is going to get away with this. And United Healthcare is involved with Squibb, with Johnson & Johnson, with Merck, all of these monsters of these pharmaceuticals. And they wouldn't let people bury their relatives. They wouldn't let them go see them in the hospital. And Biden just gave them all, is going to give them all a blanket pardon all the way back to anything that they ever did wrong. And people are tired of it. And people seeing this guy who was deeply involved, it's United Healthcare, which is the largest private provider, is a completely in bed with Fauci, with all of the pharmaceutical companies killing people by the millions.
Richard, you are on fire. Can you hang on, please? Because I'm up against a hard break. I want to come right back to you. Richard puts his finger right on it. United Healthcare is a major part of the problem. They back Big Pharma and Fauci to the hilt. Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Kuhner Country, I would really love to get your take on this. And I'm going to go right back to Richard in New Hampshire. Richard, I promise, I just want to get the poll question out. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. And I got to be honest with you. Had you asked this question, or if I'd asked myself this question last night, I would have said yes. I would have said, oh, they'll get him. Now, with everything that's starting to come out about insider trading, and he may have been, prepared to accept a plea deal, which means Brian Thompson would have basically spilled the beans. He would have turned state's evidence against other senior executives who made a lot more than he did. As I said, he made about $11 million on this insider trading. One of them made $85 million. I mean, that's an obscene amount of money. So a lot of people had a lot of money to lose. Now I'm not so sure. So anyway, here is the question. Do you think the murderer of United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, will be caught? Will the police capture him? Yesterday, many people were, law enforcement experts were saying, oh, guaranteed. They got him six ways to Sunday. They have him dead to rights with the phone, the water bottle that was found at the scene, the surveillance footage. It's only a matter of time. He may escape justice 24 hours, 48 hours, but by this weekend, they got him. Now, if this was a hit, paid for by some of these very powerful executives, I'm speculating, he may be out of the country. He disappeared into thin air within 3 minutes. Everyone says it's a professional hit, but he may have some very powerful backers. Anyway, we shall see. I want to get your take on this. Do you think he will be caught? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. My handle there, it's all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. I want to go back right away to Richard in New Hampshire. He's putting his finger on a very important point. Richard, you were saying United Healthcare was one of the biggest backers of Big Pharma, one of the biggest backers of the so-called COVID-19 vaccine, the jab, and have been huge supporters of Fauci. And that these people are in bed with Merck. They're in bed with these huge pharmaceutical giants, and they may have a lot more blood on their hands when it comes to the adverse side effects of the jab, which are now indisputable. Please, Richard, pick up where you left off.
Well, an amateur assassin doesn't care if they get caught or not, and a professional assassin is not in the business of getting caught. That's how they make their living. So that's the premise. That's just an axiom. Okay, so you can make your conclusions from there with the water bottle and so forth. But the point I was trying to bring out is just that Fauci, Christopher Wray, Clapper, all of these incredibly, insanely, almost Bond villain types, criminals, are going to Biden's going to pardon them all. And people are sick of this. People are sick of these people getting away with murder. And that may well be the impetus of this action that took place yesterday. And you ask if people should feel bad. Of course you feel bad for their children, I guess. But these people are criminals, and they're getting away with killing millions of people, and in the most horrible ways. They wouldn't let people go visit their people in nursing homes or in hospital. They ruin people's lives with their businesses, with this whole nonsense of shutting down the country. And what do they say? Our enemies, what did Michael Corleone say? Our true enemy is yet to be seen with all of this. And I think that the whole gangster aspect of it that you brought out in that book is so prevalent in this country. And people are sick of it because people are generally, they just want to live their lives. They want to raise their kids. They just want to keep whatever money that this government possibly lets them, which is another discussion. And this whole business of this guy who is a complete bond billing criminal, this guy that was United Healthcare CEO, he is a criminal, okay? And, he got something that, unfortunately, these people are not going to be adjudicated. They're not going to go to jail. They're not going to pay anything. And that's the problem, Jeff.
Well, look, and just to reinforce what you're saying, about, United Healthcare, but all of them. I'm not singling out United, but they were one of the biggest culprits. I mean, they deny people coverage all the time. They deny people needed prescription medications all the time. They're notorious for that. But man, they forced that jab on everybody. Oh, Richard, that they wouldn't deny. No, and at a bargain, because they got all the money from the government. So it was like almost give it free, it's free, take it, it's free, it's not free. The government was paying them, and they made hundreds of millions of dollars. They did, so did Johnson & Johnson, so did Moderna, so did Pfizer. I mean, they made out literally like bandits, okay? Like criminals, gangsters. Now, just to give you an example, Richard, of what you're saying, and I don't want to give statistics. I could give numbers which are staggering. There is a new report from the House Oversight Committee on COVID-19, the pandemic. And everything we were told was an absolute lie. It's in the report. The report, congressional report, now says that the virus came from the lab in Wuhan, that we were lied to, that the masks never worked, and that they knew it never worked. Fauci knew it didn't work. The CDC knew it didn't work. The NIH knew it didn't work. The Biden regime knew it didn't work. They still forced it on children in particular, knowing the devastating emotional, social, psychological consequences. The social distancing made up. It's official now. Congress said we asked, we pressed, we investigated, we put people under oath. You know what they told us? 6 feet. They made it up. Now, it's not just that it led to businesses being shut down, but not the big box retailers. See? They were lining the pockets of the politicians. So they stayed open. But the small mom and pop businesses, blank you, 30, 40, 50-year-old businesses out, bankrupt, finished. Okay? But by forcing the 6 feet social distancing, you couldn't keep all the kids in school. You can't separate the desks. 6 feet, it's not enough. And, classroom is a limited size. So you can't spread the desks 6 feet. Students then they had to send them home. They shut down the schools. Do you know that the average student literally lost IQ points because of this? It destroyed their cognitive development. It held them back educationally. It led to mass depression. It led to suicides. It's led to a mental health crisis among our youth that we're going to live with, they're going to live with for the rest of their lives. And you were so certain, you were so authoritarian. And these idiot moonbats who still email me about how they're for the science and we were anti-science. Well, the science turns out you all lied. Damn you. You made it up. Your experts, quote unquote, made it up. A very dear friend of mine, a former student, when I was a professor at McGill, was told by her employer, okay, she's married with a daughter, beautiful young girl. If you don't take the jab, you're out on the street. You don't take the vaccine, which we now know doesn't prevent the spread of COVID-19, doesn't prevent you from contracting COVID-19. So they lied to us. If you don't take the jab, we're going to let you go. And this was her dream job. And she needed the money to feed her husband and her daughter. Her husband at the time was unemployed. So she took the jab. Both. Guess what? She's now got cancer all over her body. They say it's one of the strangest forms of cancer they have ever seen. That's what her doctors told her. You're lucky to have 5 years to live. Lucky if you have 5 years. And she's got to do constant treatments now. Constant. Her daughter is lucky to be 10 years old. 10 years old before her mother dies. Where's the justice? Now, we're not, okay, death. Let's not talk about death. How about this? And this is happening now to many women. Many women. Grace told me this just, what is it, over the weekend. As you know, my wife is a wonderful real estate agent on top of everything else that she does. So she meets a potential client and, they talk, they have lunch, they're having coffee, blah, 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 blah. And she says she's got one child and they really want a second child. But something has happened. She's had 3 consecutive miscarriages. She never had a miscarriage before. Her first child, no problem. That was before 2020. But ever since 2020, she is lucky to get pregnant, but she's having miscarriages. 1, 2, and then the third one. Nothing like this happened to her mother, to her grandmother. There's nothing in the family. And this is what she told Grace on her own. On her own. My suspicion and that of my husband is I've never felt the same ever since they forced me to take the vaccine. I took the jab. I didn't have a menstrual cycle for a couple of months. It threw off my period. I knew something was wrong. I had a bad reaction. And now I can't have a second child. Now, you may say, well, you got one, you should be grateful. I'm just telling you that this woman is breaking down in tears to my own wife, saying, I feel called to have a second child. I mean, we love our baby, we love our child, but I wanted more. I'm a mother. I'm called to be a mother. We wanted at least 2, if not 3 kids. It's what I believe God put me on this earth to do. And now the doctors are warning her she's pregnant, and they're saying, don't be surprised if you get another miscarriage. And the most disgusting thing of all, Richard, is that in private, the doctors are telling her, the very same doctors who 4 years ago were telling her, take the jab. Oh, it's safe. Take it. It's safe. 100% effective. It's safe. Now we're telling her in private, yeah, we're getting a lot of complaints about women and not being able to have children and their menstrual cycle being off and having miscarriages. And they're like, yeah, we think it's because of the jab. What? You're my doctor. I trust you. You're the medical expert. You're the one that went to college. I'm supposed to trust you. You tell me to take something. I take something. And now you're telling me I'm basically infertile? I mean, she can get pregnant, but, I can't have a child. I'm basically now, I'm no longer going to be able to have children because of a decision that you and the medical establishment made? Because you rushed the drug to market. And you rushed the drug to market to make money. That's what this was all about. Now, you tell me, Richard, that poor friend of mine who's lucky to be around by 2028, who's going to be dead and leave behind a grieving husband and a 10-year-old daughter, and this poor woman who's most likely now never going to be able to have a child again, where's the justice for them? They're not making $10 million a year. They're not living in a mansion. They don't get bonuses and payoffs, and they got to live with the decisions that people like Brian Thompson and United Healthcare did. And I'm telling you, and I know this is your point, but I'm just kind of reemphasizing it. That's why we sent Trump to Washington. And that's why I'm telling everybody I want Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary. Why? Because I believe him when he says he's going to get to the bottom of this. And heads are going to roll. And people are going to be held accountable. And some people like Fauci are going to go to jail. And that the American people need to know what happened. And this needs to be exposed. And to bring it really full circle, that's why I'm drawing the line on Pete Hegseth. Because I know once they go after Pete and take him down, they're going to go after RFK. And the reason why they're taking down RFK, and look at Lindsey Graham, swimming in big pharma money. Look at John Thune. They own this guy like a $10 streetwalker. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, I can go right down the list. The donors own them, lock, stock, and barrel. So you're going to get no justice. That's why they're covering all this up. And they look for every petty excuse. I told you, now they're already pushing. A nanny, undisclosed anonymous said Robert F. Kennedy Jr. touched her inappropriately. See, what I tell you? They're going to, so every single one of them, either you're a Russian asset or, oh my God, he's sexual misconduct. And then they're just looking for an excuse to vote against them. And then they come out and say, I can't, this is disturbing. Oh, Susan Collins, Lisa, Mitch McConnell, I can't vote for this. Look at this, New York Times. Robert F. Kennedy, guy's a womanizer. Inappropriate touching. No. Grabbed the nanny by the rear end. Anonymous. Don't know who the nanny is, but he's a fanny toucher, a fanny pusher. That's how the game is played. We've got to say enough is enough. Trump's got to clean house. Fauci's got to go to jail. These heads of all these big pharma companies need to go to jail. And the American people need to know exactly what was done to them. Because there's a lot of people dead, and a lot of people with myocarditis, and a lot of women who can't have babies, and a lot of women who've destroyed their menstrual cycle. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, yeah. Is money corrupting everything? You better believe it. And that's why we're going to drain that swamp. We run this country, not the globalists and not the elites. And it's about time these criminals and gangsters got it through their thick head. We're done with them. Final word to you, Richard.
Fauci's going to be pardoned, just like Biden pardoned his son. And all, like Christopher Wray, James Clapper, all of this crew. They're all going to be pardoned by presidential pardon, and nothing's going to happen to them. This is the reason why this anger is just boiling over. And so far as like RFK is concerned, I completely agree with you. And your summation after we spoke is completely accurate. There's no reason to give a last word for what you just said, because it pretty much emphasizes and completes the whole thought process.
Richard, as always, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, look, I'm sorry. You can't just issue a preemptive pardon over what? No, this is a grotesque abuse of the pardon power. I'm sorry. This is where Republicans have to grow a pair. Hey, look, buddy, you can issue a so-called, I've never heard of this, a preemptive pardon. I've never heard of this. What? So he hasn't been charged with anything? So now you're just going to give people blanket immunity? Okay, whatever you've done, you can never be charged. Whatever you've done, you can never be charged. No, I'm sorry. That's illegal. That's grossly unconstitutional. It's a clear abuse of power. We're not going to stand for it. And I'm telling you right now, Joe Biden needs to understand that he may go to jail over this. The pardon power is not there for you to just, it's not a get out of jail free card for all of your corrupt criminals and gangsters. I'm sorry, over what? Have they been charged with a crime? Have they been convicted of a crime? That's what the pardon is for. Remember, if you accept a pardon, it's an admission of guilt. That means you need to be pardoned. If you've done nothing wrong, what do you need a pardon for? Ronnie in Boston. Thanks for holding, Ronnie, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Ronnie.
Good morning, Kuhner Country. I have been fascinated by this assassination. And, like you, of course, my thoughts and prayers are with this man's family. I tend to think that this is not a disgruntled, person that lost a relative because of this healthcare company. Most people like that have no idea where to even begin reaching out to hiring a professional. And for somebody to view this man as such an existential threat to their freedom or whatever, this is clearly somebody with means and influence that set this plan in motion. That's just my personal opinion. And I think competent investigators, aren't going to have to dig too deeply to find a motive to match such an extreme answer, whether it's insider trading and they found out he was going to flip, or maybe it's something personal that has nothing to do with business, but it's either directly related to his, CEO position or it isn't. But either way, you ask the question, is it possible to catch this assassin? And I believe that it is. He was clearly aware that there were cameras where he had planned to do this hit. He was also clearly fed information. And it's also clear that the target didn't see this coming because he didn't have bodyguards with him. He didn't have a phalanx of security. So this man...
Ronnie, can you please hang on? I'm up against a hard break. Mike, you're really killing me with these breaks, man. Like, would it kill you to extend it a minute? I mean, seriously. All right, Ronnie, please hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. More with Ronnie, your calls next. Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Let's go right back to Ronnie in Boston. Ronnie, you were saying you're quite confident they're eventually going to catch him. A lot of evidence has been left behind. The bottle, the cell phone, a lot of video surveillance coverage, footage available. You believe this guy's days are numbered. Please, Ronnie, pick up where you left off.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you for the way you hold callers over like this to let them finish. It's so considerate. I tend to think that this shooter, judging by the means that he chose to pull this off, he had a lot of inside information. He knew exactly where this man would be. He knew that he wouldn't have security with him, and so he chose a very small, discreet, silent weapon rather than something automatic to say, be able to handle the target plus maybe 2 or 3 security people by himself. But the biggest thing that I think that they have to go on is that the e-bike that he used is clearly shown. And, to anybody that owns an e-bike or uses them, that is almost strictly an online purchase. There's almost nowhere that you can go, a brick and mortar shop, to buy an e-bike. And from the moment they're manufactured, the entire shipping process, delivery process, especially because of the batteries they're using and all the bylaws with that, the digital trail that an e-bike purchase leaves, is phenomenal. So if they can isolate the model of e-bike that he used, they can go to that company, figure out where those purchases were made, and see if any of those purchases are linked in any way to an individual, linked to United Healthcare or linked to this target. But to me, the e-bike was the real big golden ticket of a clue to find and isolate and catch this person. But again, I don't believe this was a disgruntled person that lost a relative or something like that. Not only do people like that have no access to a professional killer, but they also don't have any inside access to information as to where this person will be or at what time. This was clearly somebody that knew this person and clearly somebody that felt they had an enormous amount to lose if this man lived. So they have a lot to go on. They've also got the shooter's height. They have his approximate weight. They have his race. Plus they have, a clear video of the e-bike that he used. So for an investigator, that's a wealth of information to go on. So the only way they won't catch him, Jeff, is that if they hire somebody else to kill the killer, or if the person that set this in motion is so powerful and influential that they have the ability to get the police to really not look into this.
Or, Ronnie, this is, you anticipated my question. Or, what do you think of this? Because, look, again, he was, with other senior executives at United, and they made a lot more money on this insider trading than he did. What is it? One, 85 million. Another one, what was it? 57 or 60 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. And I mean, he made about 11 million. What if these people are rich enough, powerful enough that they can smuggle this killer out of the country? And because this is what's dumbfounding the police and the media. It's how easily this guy just disappeared almost into thin air. Within 2 or 3 minutes, he's gone. I mean, gone. As you put it, he's on the e-bike. He's in Central Park. I mean, they've got drones at Central. I mean, they can't, nothing. The drones haven't found anything so far. He apparently changed his clothes. So the speculation is, what if this guy's in, I don't know, Bermuda? I'm just going to make something up here, or in the Cayman Islands. And, they gave him 5 mil or 10 mil or whatever it is for the hit. Thank you. Have a nice life. And maybe drop the bottle and drop the phone to distract the police. And this guy's out of the country and they'll never catch him or find him again. What say you?
What I say, Jeff, is that even if everything that you just said is true, whoever did this, as powerful as they may be, they are not powerful enough to obliterate the paper trail of the e-bike purchase. They're just not powerful enough to do that. They don't. Those records are immutable. That's a digital trail that nobody can erase, that nobody can take away, unless you go straight to the CEO of the company that made the e-bike itself. So that's why I think the e-bike is one of their greatest leads to finding out who that is and then determining whether they're in the country or not. Interesting.
Ronnie, thank you very, very much for that call. Really good call as always. Mike in my ear was also making the similar point, but saying, Jeff, think about it. A lot of assassins have been caught. From John Wilkes Booth, I know it was a different time. Abraham Lincoln didn't have the technology that we have now. But, still, I mean, a lot of assassins have been caught. So, in other words, just because the guy hasn't been found in 24 hours doesn't mean he won't be captured, which is a very good point. It's true, Mike. You're right. Steve on Long Island, New York. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Steve.
I just want to tell you, Jeff, I'm a religious listener to the Jeff Kuhner show, and I'm not someone to blow smoke. I just want to tell you, you are wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, you are. Now, I want to, if I can just go to the Pete Hegseth thing for 1 minute, please.
Yes.
It's common knowledge that so many of our current politicians that serve in our government have had affairs with women and used taxpayer money to cover up these affairs and pay these women off. To say it's one or two would be an understatement of great magnitude. Now, in the NFL, defenses don't score points. Offenses do. The people, we have been playing defense, and all we ever do is play defense. We need to play offense. I wish that there was somebody or a group of people that would have the stones to go out and actually name names of politicians.
Boy, Mike, you're really on a roll today. I got to tell you this, Mike. Huh? I mean, you love cutting them off right at the making their climactic point there, Mike. Steve, please hang on. I'm going to come right back to you after a hard break. Thanks, Mike. 266-6868. Okay, let's go right back to Steve in Long Island. Steve, I got to tell you, you are absolutely killing it. I could not agree with you more. Defenses don't win games. Well, they win games, but defenses don't score points. Offenses score points. We're always on defense. The Democrats, the media, the deep state, they're always on offense. We need to start going on offense as well. Steve, please pick up where you left off.
So let me finish. I just have one or two more points. I'll be as concise as I can. You know who has courage? Matt Gaetz has courage. Kash Patel has courage. RFK Jr. has courage. And you know who has to cave? Matt Gaetz has to cave. And it remains to be seen if Kash Patel and RFK have to cave. But do you know who caves the quickest? The bullies, because they're the weakest. And you have nothing but bullies in our government now. And if under the threat of exposure, they had to deal with that, many of them would resign rather than be exposed. I personally think that if you want to turn the earth and get all new people into government, you've got to really have the courage, not one person like that poor fella from North Carolina who was paralyzed, who they did away with him, who tried to expose the cocaine that was going on in our government. The young, good-looking fellow from, I think, North Carolina, they did away with him and took him out of Congress. But you need a bunch of people to have the courage to stand up and name names, and then after that, you know what has to happen? You have to have a class action lawsuit by Americans, thousands and thousands of Americans, having a class action lawsuit against these politicians for spending taxpayer money on some type of fraudulent thing for their own well-being. And then if you had that class action lawsuit and had lawyers that were confident enough to do it, unlike what's going on now and what's going on for the last few years, you would turn the government inside out and we would solve our problem.
I love it. Steve, I love it. And just the one thing I mean, there are many things, but in particular, one of the traits I really love about Trump, but Elon and the other people that now he's surrounding himself, they want to release the Epstein list. I think that's going to be huge. They want to release the Sean P. Diddy list. Apparently it's a who's who of Hollywood, and there's a lot of political people involved as well. I agree with you. And I want to release the list of all of those politicians. And there are hundreds, if not dozens, if not hundreds, who used our money in that secret taxpayer slush fund to pay off countless women, individuals, sexual harassment, affairs, you name it. And if we start doing that, they're not going to bother our nominees anymore. In other words, you're right. We got to go on offense. And to sue them, that would be the cherry on the sundae. A nice, massive class action lawsuit. Steve, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. And look, just super quick. I don't want to focus on this too much or delve on it too much, but, or dwell on it too much. But talking about Pete Hegseth, and now this outrage in official Washington by all these politicians. Oh, he cheated. Oh, he got drunk at the bar. Oh my God. He's not pristine enough to be the Secretary of Defense. When I was the assistant national editor at the Washington Times, okay, this was early on when I was there at the Washington Times, I went to the Capitol Grill. I've told this story before, but I want to tell all of you this detail. So I wasn't there to see Ted Kennedy. I was there to interview somebody else. Capitol Grill, full of journalists, full of politicians. Okay, it's where they hang out. So I go there to interview this individual. It's about maybe 4:30 in the afternoon. Who do I see at a table? As I said, Ted Kennedy. Drunk as a skunk. Okay, it's 4:00. Bottles of wine, empty bottles. He's red as a tomato. It reeks of alcohol. He's making a complete fool of himself. But who does he have right beside him? She looked like an escort. I'm not saying she was. It was his girlfriend, one of his girlfriends. But I'm telling you, she had this tight cocktail dress on. You should have seen the high heels on her. She was at least half his age, more than half his age. He was not just her father. He could have been her grandfather. She was all over him. She was tonguing his ear. Okay, if you want to know the truth, she was sticking her tongue in his ear. And he's laughing and giggling. And Tom Daschle was there. He was then the Senate. He's now a lobbyist, but then he was the Senate Democratic leader. So the most powerful Democrat in the Senate was right there, watching Ted Kennedy at 4 p.m, drunk 6 sheets to the wind with a woman who wasn't his wife, clearly his girlfriend, and I mean, she practically serviced him right there. Okay, it was obscene. It was disgusting. Other Democrat politicians there. Republican politicians there. All of them there. Media, all there. The Washington Post. I was there. Washington Times. CNN people. I'll name names. If you want, I'll name names from CNN. Fox News. They were all there. NBC, ABC. They're all there. Stuffing their faces at 4:30 in the afternoon. So they know what a whorehouse Washington is. They know what a bordello it is. They know how common and prevalent cheating, affairs, promiscuity, drinking, boozing, partying, hell, being drunk at midnight, drunk at 4 o'clock. And when Ted Kennedy passed away, all of them, Lindsey Graham practically cried at his funeral. The Lion of the Senate. One of the greatest senators we ever had. Okay, he's a murderer. I don't care what anybody says. He killed Mary Jo Kopechne. Period. Full stop. Okay? A murderer. Never mind all of his other sins. Lindsey Graham loved him. Joe Biden loved him. Susan Collins loved him. Lisa Murkowski loved him. Mitch McConnell, another one. It's like his long-lost father died. Mitch was almost inconsolable at the funeral. But suddenly now, Pete Hegseth, oh, no, oh my God, oh, he shows up to work with alcohol on his breath. Oh, I just read this in NBC News. Oh my God, he had an affair. Had an affair on his second wife. Emailed from his own mother. Oh my God, oh my God, he's got to go to church and confess his sins. You phonies, you frauds, you. Honestly, you make me sick. You really make me sick. Pete Hegseth, God bless him. Fight, fight, fight. If you want, I can play you the cuts. We'll probably do it tomorrow. He went on Megyn Kelly yesterday, said, I spoke to Trump, and he said, I got to clean it up. Fight like I can't say, excrement, feces. Okay, think Hunter Biden and his artwork. Okay, okay, fight like crap. He goes, I got your back. You got to fight like crap. That's the swamp. Now, I want you to think about this. Here's a guy, Purple Heart, put his life on the line. If I had him on, I'd say, Pete, I want you to be brutally honest with me. What's dirtier and more vicious? The Al-Qaeda insurgents you fought in Iraq? The Taliban terrorists and murderers you fought in the caves and mountains of Afghanistan? Or the scumbags you have to deal with now on Capitol Hill and in the media? And I don't want to speak for Pete. I'll bet you the best steak at the best steakhouse that Pete would say, oh, I'd rather take on the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. They have more honor than these people up on Capitol Hill or in the media. At least there they tell you to your face they hate you. Here, like Joni Ernst. You know who's quarterbacking the whole thing against Pete Hegseth? It's Joni Ernst and Lindsey Graham. And they need him. Like yesterday, Joni Ernst shakes his hand. Pete, how are you, fellow soldier? Veteran to veteran, Pete. Come into my office. She releases a statement. We had a frank, enjoyable, thoroughgoing conversation. While in the shadows, leak, 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 attack, attack, attack. Why? Because she's in bed with the military-industrial complex. Look at her donors. It's all the big defense contractors. They want this thing in Ukraine to go on forever. What are you, nuts? Again, greed and money. This is greed. How much they've made off the war in Ukraine? Not enough. Not enough. In Washington, you can't see the enemy. And they pretend to be your friend. They have coffee with you. They even say, Pete, you want sugar with that? Would you like some cream with that? You look on and your jaw, you're on the floor. You're just looking like, you be you. So you're trying to destroy me, but here you are with a big smile on your face and trying to give me a kiss on the cheek. Pete Hegseth will fight to the end. God bless him. 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Andy.
Hey, earlier on in the show, you were talking about just the greed of these CEOs. Yes. And how this United Health CEO, he makes close to $10 million a year, and he still has to be involved with this high insider trading. And, I mean, a lot of us look in on the outside of that, and, we don't understand it. We ask, when is enough is enough? In the early Henry Ford, in the early 1900s, and Henry Ford, I mean, he revolutionized, the world in his day with the creation of the Model T, and I think it's safe to say he was one of the wealthiest men of his time. This question was asked of Henry Ford about material wealth. The answer was that the question was asked to him, Mr. Ford, how much is enough? There's a lot of wisdom to how he answered that question, Jeff. His answer was, quote, just a little bit more than what you have. And, if these CEOs, if they don't have God on the throne of their life, if they're not governed by something that tells them at some point that, okay, you know what, I have enough stuff, it's now got to become about giving back in a way that I can lift all boats. If it's not that, however much is enough is never going to be a monetary number. It's always going to be just a little bit more than what they have.
Andy, I got to say, I think it's brilliant. You've summed it up better than I could. If you don't have God, if you don't have some kind of a moral, spiritual, religious anchor to your life, you're right. It's just never enough. It's like a black hole. You just can't keep filling it. And it's a disease. Really, it's a form of slavery. I know you don't, why would a wealthy man being a slave, but you're really a slave to your vice. It's like a compulsion. You just can't stop. And, they say you're a drug addict. And when you're a drug addict, you end up committing crimes because you need to feed your habit. Well, if you're a money addict, if you're consumed by greed, you got to commit crimes to keep feeding your habit. Apparently, that's what he was doing with the insider trading. And apparently now more is coming out. They violated antitrust laws. They knew they violated antitrust laws. They didn't even apparently tell their investors. So the investors were really angry at them. So they were being investigated on multiple fronts. And, you're right. That's the problem. Look, I never begrudge a man wealth. I never do. And, you look at someone like Donald Trump, he's a multi-billionaire, but look how much good he does with his money. That's the other thing. There's a certain point where you say, hey, look, I make a great product. I provide a great service. I employ countless people, whether like in Trump's case, it was real estate, construction, whatever. I put, a lot of people to work. I put roofs over their head, send their kids to college. I give them good health insurance. To me, you're a leading pillar of the community. But when it's all about, screw this and screw that and break the law and cheat, and that's the other thing. It's United Healthcare. I mean, and David messaged me saying, hey, Jeff, I have United Healthcare. I get metformin for $5 a month. So I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm sure they give for some people very good coverage on prescriptions because frankly, $5 a month for metformin as a diabetic, I'm telling you, that's a good deal. Okay. So I'm not saying it's all bad, but I mean, you hear the horror stories of how cheap they are, how they deny people coverage, how people are dying and they just say, nah, we're not going to cover you anymore. I don't care if you're making 100 million, $1 billion. In the end, we're all going to die. You're not taking the money with you. Is that what you want on your conscience? You don't need to do this to make money. So, look, Andy, since you quoted Henry Ford, Dostoevsky, who I think was maybe the most brilliant philosopher and novelist of the late 19th, 20th century. Okay, his stuff is gold. Famously said, when you remove God, you remove all moral absolutes. Without God, everything becomes permissible, everything becomes possible. And I think we're now starting to live with the consequences of that. When people live without God, they have no moral restraints, no moral boundaries whatsoever. And whether it's selling your country down the river, whether it's corporate corruption, whether it's the media and how they've been lying to us, whether it's child and sex trafficking and pedophilia and everything we're seeing in Hollywood, it's the devil. And on that note, bye-bye.